Since 2020, due to pandemic restrictions, zoos in the capital city have completely stopped operations. Ulaanbaatar Zoo and Aquarium is now pleading to reopen to avoid permanent closure.
One of the businesses that have been completely shut down during Mongolia's pandemic lockdown is the country's zoos. Ulaanbaatar Zoo and Aquarium is one of 3 zoos in Mongolia. Since the lockdown of March 2020, they haven't been allowed to be open to the public. The company says it came close to the brink of collapse several times when they couldn't afford to buy animal feed. Thanks to animal lovers and pet supply shop owners, feed and supplies were donated, allowing the zoo to hang on. The Ulaanbaatar Zoo and Aquarium houses over 500 animals, representing 80 species. The daily cost for animal feed reaches around 200,000 Mongolian tugruk, around $70.
The animal with the highest population at our zoo is guinea pigs. There are 3 species. These days, the cost of vegetables has risen. 1 sack of carrots has reached 100,000 MNT, but our guinea pigs consume that much in 2 days.
The zoo's manager says they don't have animals that can be set free in the wild. They all need human care. Ulaanbaatar Zoo and Aquarium was opened in 2017 by a group of friends, but after just 3 years, the company is facing dire challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The zoo's monthly cost for animal feed is about 6 million Mongolian tugruk, or $2,100. In order to feed the animals, the company's owners have invested all their capital and sold their aquariums. They have even reduced the size of their venue to lower utility costs. The zoo's employees have put all the recommended COVID-19 prevention measures in place for a return to operations. The company has sent the authorities their plea to reopen.
According to cinema workers, it is an industry that can open its operations following the infection control regime. Currently, there are 12 cinemas of 8 companies operating in Ulaanbaatar city. They are expected to work 365 days in 2020, but they worked 170 days in total. In 2021, they worked for only 20 days, and industry insiders say this has led to big economic losses.
There have been no reported cases of COVID-19 transmission through cinemas. The reason for this is the specifics of cinema services. They seat a certain number of spectators along the seats, so it's possible to create space between moviegoers. Also, the chances of audience contact are minimal because they take all the viewers out, clean them, ventilate them, and take the next audience. Although the audience seems to sit in a closed room for about 2 hours after watching a movie, they have the best ventilation system.
The TENGIS cinema alone has an area of 4,000 square meters. During the 2 years of lockdown, in addition to covering operating costs, the company has been paying its employees regularly. They paid their taxes and did not interrupt the workers' social insurance. But if we don't open the theater soon, then on the one hand it will be financially difficult, and also the audience will lose the culture of watching movies in the theater.
The theater not only screens newly released foreign films, but also screens films by local artists. About 40 Mongolian films are released every year, and they are still waiting for a number of films to be released. However, filmmakers are also beginning to suffer losses due to the non-operation of the cinemas.
Mongolian movies earn over 20 million MNT a year. It directly creates jobs for more than 500 people, and indirectly it creates jobs for more than 2,000 people. Content creators are donating their work to the television industry, but the pure feature film has not been retained. Saving a movie is a dead asset. We have borrowed money from many places to make movies.
Theatrical artists have sent a request to the mayor's office to open cinemas with at least 50% capacity if it's impossible to open as 100%. So far, no definite answer has been received. They wanted the cinema to open as a branch that could create spaces between the seats, so it would follow an infection control regime.
Air quality in the capital city has reached alarming levels due to the ongoing forest fires in the Russian Federation. According to the Hydrometeorological Agency, the smoke from the fire will cover the capital city of AFGHANISTAN and the central region for 2 days during this week. The smoke of the Siberian fire in Russia covered the city of Ulaanbaatar. As of 6 p.m. yesterday, the air quality index of the capital city exceeded 225 and reached a level that is harmful to human health. The same level of air will continue in the coming days, according to the Hydrometeorological Agency.
Today, at a number of points, dangerous levels have been observed. This situation is expected to continue until at least August 11th. The smoke is likely to continue for a long time, as it will be in the western and northwestern regions. The air route is relatively safe from the southwest. That situation is expected to be good from August 11th to 15th. The main places where smoke has an impact are Болгон, Сэлэнг, Төв, and Дундгов аймагс.
Experts advise people with allergies, asthma, and young children to not go outside as much as possible at a time where there is a significant increase in smoke from the forest fire. It is also necessary to rinse the throat with a solution of salt and soda. The fire was caused by a very dry summer in the Siberian region, which has not been seen for the last 150 years. A total of 300 fires have occurred since June, affecting 15,000 square kilometers. More than 5,300 people, 873 pieces of equipment, 34 air control planes, and 11 firefighting planes are working to extinguish the fire. Currently, 22 countries have opened their borders to passengers from Mongolia under special COVID-19 prevention measures. Each country has set different entry requirements. Also, entry permissions are constantly changing due to COVID-19 infection rates. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is advising potential travelers to regularly check any information provided by the embassies and consulates. China requires 14 to 28 days of isolation for every arriving passenger, whether or not they have been vaccinated. Russia won't impose an isolation period. If the mutual border is open, students are allowed to enter, but they will have to undergo 10-day observation. South Korea requires every passenger above the age of 6 years old to take COVID-19 tests. Tests must be translated both in Korean and English. 14-day isolation is in effect, and study visas are allowed. The USA is avoiding isolation. Only those who traveled in highly infectious regions 14 days prior to entry into the USA are not allowed. The PCR test must be taken within 72 hours. Japan only allows visitors with people with permanent residency cards. Visa issuance has been stopped, and passengers from Mongolia are required to be isolated for 14 days at home or at designated spots. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Mongolia reminds passengers to stay updated with COVID-19 border measurements as it changes from time to time. Mongolian school children have been online homeschooling during the pandemic for about 2 years. A recent study shows that 60% of them have fallen behind with their learning. Over 700,000 children attended secondary and high schools in Mongolia. During the 2-year pandemic lockdown, children were required to learn online from home. But according to statistics, 6 in 10 children have fallen behind in their learning. At this moment, they are in need of making up for the lesson missed.
The online subjects were fast-paced and I couldn't keep up with them. My classmates and I feel that online learning is difficult and we just want to go back to our class.
During the 2020-2021 academic year, only 40% of school children were able to study the subjects completely. The Ministry of Education plans to organize catch-up classes in the beginning of fall. A 3-year comprehensive plan was approved to solve the issue.
For instance, more than half of third-year students aren't fully educated with second and first grade subjects, and a huge gap has formed amongst them. For primary school children, basic literacy skills such as reading, writing, and calculating haven't fully formed.
First graders who entered school in 2019 are entering third grade this year after staying at home for 2 years. They have been isolated from their teachers and peers for a long time, and some have become shy. The new school year also focuses on adjustment programs for young children in social situations. On Tuesday, August 10th, President HUNNU awarded military personnel that have operated in Afghanistan with honorary medals.
Several Mongolian military teams had been appointed in Afghanistan for the International Decisive Support Mission. For the mission, US and German squadrons collaborated. The Mongolian president also holds the position of Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Yesterday, President HURELSUKH awarded military personnel with the highest military awards, including the Order of Military Merit, Military Honorary Medal and Medal for Peace. President HURELSUKH noted that Mongolian army officers performed well in UN peacekeeping missions and other international military assignments. He thanked the soldiers for raising the country's reputation through their hard work and diligence.
I hope that all the experiences gained by our soldiers will impact the further enhancement of the Mongolian armed forces. For 18 years, Mongolian military personnel operated in Afghanistan. I also want to express my sincere gratitude towards the families and spouses of the soldiers for their reliable backup and support during all these years. The weather conditions were harsh. Also, the pandemic situation gave us more challenges. However, our military unit overcame the difficulties through our joint efforts.
At the international military missions, Mongolian soldiers are appreciated for their adaptability skills, patience, and dexterity. The Mongolian president congratulated them for their service with the honorary awards.
For pandemic relief, the government introduced a discount for utility costs for households and businesses. Since then, coal consumption has increased by 15%.
For instance, thermal power plant number 4 in the capital city burns 3,500,000 tons of coal in a year. It provides 65% of the total energy supply. Since the government's decision of nullifying thermal cost, the energy consumption has risen by 15% in the city, officials report. Therefore, the company needs to reserve a bigger amount of coal than usual for the upcoming winter.
Since the beginning of 2021, our company has produced an additional 245 million kilowatt hours. It's equal to the consumption of the summer month. Now we need an extra supply of coal for the autumn and winter.
Currently, thermal power plants are having their annual repairs and renovation. However, some construction materials are stuck at the Mongolian-Chinese border and are slowing down the repair process.
The President of Mongolia, HUNNU, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, met with the Ministry of Defense and General Staff of the Armed Forces. The President said that the Armed Forces need to tackle climate change and desertification in the 21st century.
In recent years, natural disasters have endangered human lives and caused significant damage to livestock and property. Last March, 10 people, including 2 children, were killed and several others were injured in a severe dust and snowstorm in several provinces. At such times, President HURELSUKH said that Mongolia's armed forces must contribute more to combat desertification and climate change.
Environmental issues must be addressed. One of the important tasks of the President is that climate change and sandstorms have been happening a lot in the last 6 months. I want to tackle that. Therefore, our armed forces should be more involved in this work. It's hoped that some projects and programs can be implemented.
The army makes a man into a real man. President HURELSUKH instructed to continuously educate employees, strengthen discipline at all levels, and further cooperate with vocational training centers in order to be a sector that prepares heads of households. He also expressed his support for the step-by-step solution of investments and other issues.
The Ministry of Culture and the Archaeological Institute have initiated a project to turn a HUNNU aristocrats burial site close to Ulaanbaatar into an outdoor museum.
There are several historical sites near Ulaanbaatar which could be transformed into a tourist destination. This time, a HUNNU aristocrats burial site located in Bichiam, north of Ulaanbaatar, is chosen for the renovation. Officials foresee that it could be a prime outdoor museum dating back to around 2,200 years ago. The burial site was first identified in 1960. As of today, 6 massive tombs have been found by archaeologists.
The HUNNU Empire existed for over 300 years. The doors of the tombs are facing towards the Tsitsegum peak of the Bogtang Mountains. We assume that HUNNU ancestors settled at the current location of Ulaanbaatar.
Archaeologists have found remains of vases and fabric residues among many other findings from the burial site. As of today, excavation work is less than 70% complete. The HUNNU aristocrats' burial site in Vichiam is regarded as the largest and closest HUNNU historical site near Ulaanbaatar. Now officials are planning to develop the burial site into a major tourist sightseeing destination for the capital city.
Whether to implement a third vaccine jab is under discussion by government and the health officials. As of today, 68% of the population has received their second shot.
According to Deputy Prime Minister HUNNU, surveys have been carried out on about 35,000 vaccinated people. Through these surveys, vaccine immunology and related positive and negative impacts will be identified. The research results are planned to be completed this month.
After the survey results are known, health officials will choose which vaccines will be used for the third shot. But the final decision to actually implement a third vaccine shot regime will be based on the assessments of scholars and researchers.
The vaccination roll started in Mongolia in February 2021. Today, 68% of the total population of 3.2 million has received the second shot of the vaccine.
In the past 2 years, the Mongolian Red Cross Society has provided COVID-19 relief to the value of 5 billion MNT, which is equal to about $1.7 million. The government expressed its gratitude to their humanitarian efforts.
During 2020 to 2021, the Mongolian Red Cross Society provided assistance worth 2.5 billion Mongolian turks to health organizations. A further 2.7 billion Mongolian turks was spent for humanitarian aid programs. Within the program, the Mongolian Red Cross reached all provinces and districts and supplied food to 35,000 vulnerable households.
In the near future, we would like to support from the government for our capacity building program. In 2019, we obtained accreditation from the International Red Cross Society. Thereby, we became the first to receive the certification in the Asia-Pacific region. The foundation of our society is human resources.
Deputy Prime Minister Amirsahan noted that the Mongolian Red Cross Society provided tremendous support to the National Emergency Commission during the battle against the coronavirus. Last week, the Red Cross trained 600 volunteers and assisted the emergency commissions in all provinces. This year, they have been supporting the National Center of Communicable Diseases by training a further 400 volunteers to conduct surveillance research regarding COVID-19 infections. Government officials thanked the Red Cross Society and emphasized the importance of cooperation between governmental and non-governmental organizations on solving an emergency situation.
Well, that's all for this week. We'll see you next week with more news and updates. Have a nice weekend. Goodbye.